Good afternoon, people. Welcome back. Last time we did lecture number 1 of JEE NEET for electric charges and fields. This is lecture number 2. In this lecture, we are going to primarily deal with electric field, its properties. We are going to deal with electric dipole, the field due to dipole, and the behavior of the dipole. We are going to deal with electric field lines, and finally and most importantly, we are going to deal with continuous charge distributions, linear charge distribution, surface charge distribution, and volume charge distribution. To start the idea, let us move on. Electric field due to a single charge Q at a distance r from it is given as E is kq by r square. If I have n charges, the net electric field E bar, it's a vector sum according to superposition principle. E bar is E1 bar plus E2 bar plus plus En bar. This should be En bar. So if there are n charges, it is En bar. If there is a positive charge, electric field will come radially outwards. If it's a negative charge, you will see the electric field moving radially inwards. The SI unit of electric field is Newton per Coulomb or volt per meter. Do not forget that any unit can be used. Now we go on to what is an electric dipole. A system of two equal, look, the charges are equal QQ each, but opposite. This is plus Q, this is minus Q. This is a system of two equal and opposite charges separated by a finite distance. This distance is 2a. This is an electric dipole. A very important quantity is electric dipole moment, which is given as P bar is Q into 2a bar. You can see it is a vector. SI unit of P bar is Coulomb meter and direction of P bar is from minus Q to plus Q. So in this diagram, P bar goes from minus Q to plus Q. Let me represent it. This is the direction of P bar, which is minus Q to plus Q. So this is the idea entirely. Now we shall go on, and in this idea we shall look at what will be the electric field at any point due to this dipole. You've already seen the theory in the NCERT. We are just here to know the equations and apply the idea. The line that contains both the charges of the dipole, this line, is called the axis of the dipole, whereas the line which is perpendicular to the axis of the dipole is called the equator of the dipole. So here we shall look at axis and equator and the electric fields at these points, at these lines, the axis and the equator. So let us move on. Let us say we have a dipole and we need to find, this is a dipole. This is plus Q, this is minus Q, the distance is 2a, and this is the midpoint of the dipole, this is O. And this line is the axis, and let us say this is point P. You can put it anywhere, doesn't matter. This point P is at a distance r from the center of the dipole. If this entire is 2a, this would be A, this would also be A. Electric field at point P on the axis, E on the axis is 2 kpr over r square minus a square the whole square. And if you want to put it as a vector form, this would be P cap. So E bar on the axis is 2 kpr over r square minus a square the whole square. But what if r is much greater than a? If this is very large and this is very small, how would the approximation work out? It would be E bar on the axis is 2 kp by r cube into P cap. A more widely used equation is this. So this was the idea for the axis. Let us say this is the equator. A line, we define it as a line which is perpendicular to the axis is called the equator. Let us have a point called S here. again at a distance r from center O. So on the equator, the electric field E on the equator is Kp over r square plus a square, the whole raised to 3 by 2. And if you want the vector form, this becomes minus here and this becomes p cap. Again, what if r much greater than a? Then E bar on the equator is minus Kp by r cube into p cap, a more widely used idea of the electric field at a point on the equator. Then we go on to the motion, the behavior. In a uniform electric field, there is no linear motion, there is no translation. Only rotational motion. And when a dipole moves in a uniform electric field, in the uniform electric field, it will perform only rotational motion, no forward or backward linear motion. And the torque responsible for such rotational motion would be given as tau bar is P bar cross E bar. The magnitude of this torque, tau bar, the magnitude of tau bar is Pe sine theta. So, suppose somebody would ask me, what is the torque? The torque tau bar is P bar cross E bar, or magnitude of torque tau is Pe sine theta, where theta is the angle between the electric dipole moment P bar and the electric field E bar. In a non-uniform electric field, dipole performs both linear motion as well as rotational motion. Both linear as well as rotational motion. So there is going to be a force also and along with a torque. Now, when the dipole moves linearly and also rotationally, there might come a point where the dipole is aligned in the direction of electric field. At that point of time, torque becomes zero, but due to unequal forces on both sides, the linear motion will continue. So when aligned, when theta is 0 degree, then torque also is 0, but we'll take it there. But net force F bar is not 0. So the dipole continues to move in linear motion. Now this was axis, this was equator. Now what if you ask me, sir, if the point is not at the axis, it is not even at the equator, what would be the equation for electric field? I put that as special in a note. So for example, I have this dipole out here. So this is minus q, let us say this is plus q. And this is the point. Let us say this is point T. And the distance from the center is r. But you can see this point T is neither on the axis nor it is on the equator. Then what would be the electric field at such a point? Okay, no problem. Let us say the angle between this point and the line of the dipole is theta. Okay, if this is the case, then the electric field at point T is, now be very careful, we have to include theta theta in this particular equation. So my electric field E is Kp by r square. This is, but of course, root of 3 cos square theta plus 1. If you are looking carefully, sorry, Kp by r cube, not r square, Kp by r cube, root of 3 cos square theta. If I were to take point T on the axis, you agree theta would be 0. So if I put theta as 0, then cos 0 will be 1. 3 ones are 3 plus 1, that would become 4, and root of 4 is 2. So you get 2 Kp by r cube. And if T would be on the equator, then theta would be 90 and cos 90 would be 0. So this is a very, very essential idea for your competitive exams, that if the point T is neither on the axis nor on the equator, but at an angle theta with the dipole, the electric field would be something like this. Let us move on. We would like to find out what if, okay, let me just write it. On the axis, theta is 0 degree. So E is 2 Kp by r cube. And on equator, theta is 90. So electric field is Kp by r cube. Now, how much work would I have to do if I had to rotate a dipole from one point to another? This would be the part of our next idea, wherein we would try to find out that if I were to rotate, the dipole is already aligned. It is along the direction of electric field. And if I were to rotate it by an angle theta, how much work would I have to do? So, work done to rotate dipole from theta 1 to theta 2 is given as work is Pe cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2. And if a dipole is already in equilibrium, then its theta 1 is 0. Therefore, work done is Pe cos 0 minus cos theta, and cos 0 is 1. So this is Pe 1 minus cos theta. These ideas come from the potential energy of the dipole, which we shall see in detail in chapter number 2. Also, a special idea. Suppose I have this electric field and there is this dipole and I leave it in this electric field. What would happen? You will tell me, sir, this dipole will align in the direction of electric field finally. Okay. So the dipole has aligned in the direction of electric field and the situation is something like this. This is equilibrium, isn't it? Yeah. So in this particular case, there is no torque, there is no net force, dipole does not go anywhere. But what if I rotate the dipole by a small angle theta and leave it? What would happen? You will say, sir, dipole will come back to its original position. No doubt. But when it comes back to the original position, it does not stay here. It goes back a little bit here. And this dipole will continue to perform simple harmonic motion in this particular electric field. Our idea is to find out what would be the time period of such an oscillation. Let us start by saying that the torque tau is Pe sin theta, and we rotate dipole by small angle so the restoring torque tau is minus Pe sin theta. Now you would ask me, sir, why do we use minus? Because when I take theta like this, the torque tries to bring it back to the original position. As a result, I have used this minus sign. Also, as theta is small, I'm going to let sine theta nearly equal to theta. So tau is minus PE theta. In your earlier standards, you have learned that tau is I alpha. And let me take this over. Tau is I alpha. And alpha is I was moment of inertia. Alpha was angular acceleration. And so I could write it as I. Alpha was d square theta by dt square. Look at equation number 2. This is also tau. Look at equation number 3. This is also tau. Let me equate 2 and 3, which gives me I d square theta by dt square is minus PE theta. I take I down here. D square theta by dt square is minus PE by I theta. A good look at this equation. Equation 4 resembles, I'm sure you've seen it in standard 11, d square y by dt square is minus omega square y. This was the differential equation for simple harmonic motion, which proves that our dipole here is going to perform simple harmonic motion about this equilibrium position. And if I compare this, do you see that this omega square is going to be analogous to PE by I? Thus, comparing, what do I get? Omega square is PE by I, or omega is root of P by I. And everybody knows omega is 2 pi by t. And if I put 2 pi by t here, I get time period t as 2 pi root of I by PE. These are very important ideas. We will write t is equal to 2 pi upwards. We shall not get t is 2 pi root of I by PD. I hope it is visible. We are good here. So this is going to be a very important idea, where I is the moment of inertia, P is the dipole moment, and E is the electric field. So this was all about the idea for an electric dipole, its behavior in a uniform electric field, in a non-uniform electric field, and the type of simple harmonic motion that this dipole would perform. In the next topic, we are going to look at something. I have done this in some lectures some time back. This was the idea of placement of a third charge in the vicinity of two other charges. So this is a new idea wherein I'm going to put a charge and I'm going to ensure that the net force or the net electric field is zero. So please look at this carefully. Maybe many of you already know the type of problem that I call it. I'll call it tip 2. Suppose this was case 1. I have two charges. Let us say plus 8 microcoulomb and minus 2 microcoulomb at a distance 10 centimeter. And the question is, where do I place the third charge so that the net force on the third charge is zero? I call this a family system. One is positive, other is negative. They form a couple, it's like that. This is a mummy papa situation. And this is the smaller magnitude charge, I'll call it mama. And the third charge, that is the child, will go near the mama. So I will put it at a distance, let us say x from minus 2 microcoulomb. And let me give it a sign. Let us take it positive. Now you will see the force between plus q and minus 2 is going to be attractive. So minus 2 will pull plus q towards itself. F attractive. Whereas the force between plus q and plus 8 is going to be repulsive in nature. So plus 8 is going to push plus q away from it. So you can see plus Q is acted upon by two forces, one attractive, other repulsive. You can see they are opposite to each other. And for net force to be zero, the magnitudes of both have to be same. For net force on Q to be zero, the force attractive has to be force repulsive. Mind you, attraction is between these two. So, and you will only have to take magnitudes. So, K, Q, and what is this? 2 micro. 2 into 10 raised to minus 6. Over, what is the distance between plus Q and minus 2? That's x. So, x square. Force repulsive between these two. So, K, Q, 8 into 10 raised to minus 6 over. What is the distance between plus Q and 8? 10 plus x. The whole square. Now, if you go on the cutting spree, you might be able to cut KQ 10 raised to minus 6, KQ 10 raised to minus 6. And what are you left with? Let's take 10 plus x upwards over x square is 8 by 2, which is 4. Now, there is nothing left except taking root. So, take root. What do we have? 10 plus x by x. What is the root of 4? 2. Let me take 2 there. So, 10 plus x is 2x, which gives me x is equal to. So, the third charge Q is at a distance of 10 centimeter to the right of minus 2 microcoulomb. So the third charge is at a distance of 10 centimeter from minus 2 microcoulomb charge. The second part of this idea, this was 1. We will take up 2. What if these are two like charges? So one is plus 8 and the other is plus 2. Lovely system here. I call it a two-friend system. Again, same mission template, 10 centimeter apart. Where would the third charge be kept? Remember, for two like charges, the third charge will always be kept somewhere between the two charges. So let me call this Q and let me give it a sign minus. This is X. So this is 10 minus X. And now look at the forces. What is the force on minus Q due to plus 8? You agree plus 8 will attract minus Q to itself. So I'll call this F1. What is the force on minus Q due to plus 2? Again attraction. So plus 2 will attract minus Q to itself. This is F2. Again the same idea. For net force, these are two forces opposite. For net to be 0, they have to be equal. So for net force on Q to be 0, F1 has to be equal to F2. F1 is between this and this. Only magnitudes please. KQ 8 micro upon x square is KQ. F2 is between this and this. 2 into 10 raised to minus 6 over 10 minus x the whole square. I am using the idea KQ1 Q2 by R square. Again the cutting idea, KQ 10 is to minus 6, KQ 10 is to minus 6, and what are we left with? So 10 minus x the whole square by x square is 2 by 8, which is 1 by 4. Nothing except taking root. So take root. So we have 10 minus x by x. 1 by 4 root is 1 by 2. Let's cross multiply. 20 minus 2x is x, which gives me 20 is 3x. So x is 20 by 3 or 6.67. We'll call it 6.7 centimeter. From which charge? That is a $1 million question. 6.67 is x and that has been taken from plus 8. So 6.6 centimeter from plus 8 microcoulomb. This is your answer, which satisfies the second part of our topic, which was the placement of a charge near two charges. let me make a note. This was force, but if somebody would have told you I've got two charges and find a point where the electric field is zero, then it would have been same. The only difference would have been there would have been no plus q there. It would have just been a point and the net electric field would have been zero. Same here, plus 8 plus 2, net electric field here would be zero. So where the force is zero, the net electric field is also zero. Do not forget that. Now we are going on to a very, very important idea, which is charge distribution. And there are three main types of charge distributions. Linear charge distribution, which is one-dimensional. Surface charge distribution, which is two-dimensional. And volume charge distribution, which is three-dimensional. So this is tip 3, charge distribution. The first is linear. Linear is one-dimensional, single line maybe. So we've defined linear charge density lambda as the charge per unit length. So charge is q, let us say length is L. So lambda is q by L. And looking at this, the SI unit of lambda is coulomb per meter. The second is surface charge distribution. And surface charge distribution is two-dimensional. And for that, we define surface charge density. We call it sigma. It is charge per unit area, and that is Q by A. SI unit of sigma is coulomb per meter square. Charge is in coulomb, area is in meter, so coulomb per meter square. And the third is volume charge distribution. No doubt this is three-dimensional. For it we define volume charge density, which is nearly similar to the mass density that we've always defined. You know, mass density rho is mass per unit volume. Here same, mass volume charge density rho is charge per unit volume, which is Q by V, and the SI unit of rho is coulomb per meter cube. Now the million-dollar question arises as to how we are going to use these. Let me make that absolutely clear. I'm going to do a couple of ideas related to this, and in that you will always see me first finding out these things. You might be always see me asking what is lambda or what is sigma or what is rho. Once I get hold of that idea, that lambda or sigma or rho is going to help me understand how I'm going to define my system. And once my system is defined, once my lambda or sigma or rho is defined, I'm going to take an elemental length or elemental area or elemental volume, find out the charge associated, and then move on to finding either force or field and integrating it over the whole scene. So stay with me. I'm going to do a couple of sums based on this, and utilizing that you'll be able to understand how we are looking at it. Let me first take a small thing. Let me take a rod, one dimensional, but of course it has got a length L, and the question is that due to this rod, now this is not a single charge. So what is the sum? This is a rod. Though it looks fat, it is not. It is a one-dimensional rod. It has got a length L and charge Q is deposited on this whole rod. They have asked me what would be the force on this charge, let us say Q, which is at a distance R from this end A. This is end A, this is end B. I'll call this end A, this end is B. So this Q is at a distance R from end A. Now can you see all points of the rod are not at the same distance from Q. So what is the force on Q due to the rod? That is my question. So what will I do? First things first. I will first find out linear charge density. So linear charge density. It is very much similar. You go to the market, you want to buy, let us say, tomatoes, and you spot a vendor selling tomatoes. What is the first thing that you're going to do? You're not going to ask him, you're going to give me tomatoes. Obviously, he's sitting there to sell you tomatoes. The first question you're going to ask him, what is the price of these tomatoes? What rate are you selling these tomatoes? And let us hope he says 30 rupees. What do you understand from that figure? You understand that he's going to sell you 1 kg of tomatoes for the rupees 30. So that is the price per unit. So here too, we want to find out 1 meter में कितना कूलम है भाई? So we ask the question, how much is the charge density? So lambda, what is the charge total on this rod Q? And what is the length of this rod L? Wow! Easily we found out linear charge density. And now let us take a small elemental length. Stay with me and hold the line. I am taking a small elemental length. Look here. I am calling it dx. And this dx is at a distance x from this charge Q. So consider elemental length dx at a distance x from this charge Q. How much charge is in this elemental length? I have defined lambda. Arthat, in 1 meter length, there is lambda coulomb charge. Then in dx meter length, how much is the charge? So charge on this elemental length, dq, let's take it here, is lambda dx. Because I'm sure you know, in 1 meter length, there is x meter length. Kitna hoga? Simple cross multiplication will do the trick. So dq is lambda dx. You want to substitute lambda at this point? No problems. So q by L into dx. Now this dq is exerting a force on q. How much force? Force on q due to dq by Coulomb's law comes to our rescue. df k q dq over how much is the distance between q and dq? X. So this is x square. I got dq out here. So k q by L dx by x square. And now what, sir? If you want total force, integrate. So total force on Q due to whole rod. So F integral df from point A to point B. From point A, this is one end point, to the other end point B. df k q q and this is L dx by x square. Okay, integration will be from how far is A from Q? R. And how far is B from Q? R plus L. So integration goes from R from point A, because point A is at a distance R from Q, till point B. Point B is at a distance of L plus R from Q. So here KQQ comes out, L also, and we are left with integral dx by x square from R to L plus R. I'm sure you know how to integrate. So KQQ by L, this is x raised to minus 2. Let me put one more step here. X raised to minus 2 dx. Integral x raised to n dx is x raised to n plus 1 by n plus 1. And utilizing that idea, I'm going to integrate this. And what am I going to get? I'm going to get, I'll take off this. So KQQ by L, x raised to minus 2 plus 1 over minus 2 plus 1 from R. Minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. This comes out. And x raised to minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. So this becomes 1 by x. And now let us substitute. पहले upper limit and minus करके lower limit. So in place of x, I'm going to put L plus R minus. And now in place of x, I'm going to put R. Simple ideas. So R into L plus R. This R goes here, minus. So R minus R goes away, minus L remains. Minus minus goes away, L gets cut. So your force F is KQQ over R into L plus R. So this was the force on charge Q due to the entire rod. If you're looking at this carefully. Now you could take this for, anything that you want. I showed you the first thing how to use lambda, and now using lambda you can take up the idea. I'm going to use lambda again, and I'm going to find out what I'm going to do with this lambda. You stay tuned, you stay with me, you hold the line. So we'll look at lambda again. I am going to now show you a charged arc. Now this is an arc, mind well. This is, I think, one of the most important numericals that I'm going to do today in this lecture. So please pay good attention. I got an arc. Charged arc. Linear charge density lambda. And angle is theta. And you need to find electric field at point O due to the arc. So let us show you the arc. Is a miniature version of the arc, but an arc nonetheless. This is the arc from point A to point B. You can see point A is on the axis here. This is the x-axis. But point B is not touching the y-axis. So this is what they mean when they say that the arc is subtending an angle theta. So when I say the arc subtends an angle theta, it means from one end point to the other end point, both end points subtend an angle theta at the origin. So this is how we are looking at it. We want to find what this is lambda. The linear charge density is lambda. They have asked us what would be the electric field at point O due to arc AB. So now we cannot take the whole arc just like that. We will have to break down this arc. Now let me draw a refined and a very important diagram. Stay with me, please. I'm going to draw a bigger and a more important diagram. This is the idea. I'm not going to use the whole arc. The radius of the arc is R. They have told me that the radius of the arc is R. I'm going to use a small cross section of the arc. If you are looking closely, let me use this much. I'll call this much as PQ. This is a small length of arc. Let us say it subtends angle d phi out here. This is radius R, and this small PQ subtends an angle phi with the x-axis. So first things first, what is the length of arc PQ? Length of arc PQ. Everybody knows length of arc is r theta. So dl, how much is the radius r and how much is the angle subtended by arc PQ? Isn't it d phi? I'm going to call this dl. So r d phi. And now my lambda comes into existence. Charge in the arc PQ. Well, but of course, if 1 meter has lambda coulomb, then dl meter has how many coulomb? I can already hear some of you all say lambda dl, as good as it gets. So lambda dl is the charge contained. And how much is dl? R d phi. So lambda r d phi. Now, if this is dq, what would be, let us assume positive charge. What would be the direction of electric field at point O? How would be the electric field at point O? Won't it be coming radially outwards? So let me draw that to be coming radially outwards. Beautiful diagram here. This is, let us say, DE. And if this is phi, then this also has to be phi. I hope you understand this much. Let me take it again. I have not taken the whole arc. I have considered a small arc, elemental arc PQ, and this is r, this is r, this is small d phi. So the length of arc is r d phi. The charge contained in the arc is lambda dl. 1 meter contains lambda coulomb. Then dl meter contains lambda into dl. I have substituted dl here. So this is dq. This dq, what will be the direction of electric field at O due to this dq? Do you agree? It will be radially outwards. I've made it radially outwards, dE, and this is phi, so this is also phi. First things first, how much is dE? We'll take it from here. Electric field at O due to dQ. Well, everybody knows who's sitting in this lecture, who has their ears and eyes open. They know electric field is kq by r square. So k dq by, what is the distance from here to O? Isn't it r? So r square. I am going to substitute dq ASAP, lambda r d phi. 1 r goes away. So d is k lambda by r d phi. I did not say this was a small sum. No, it is an important sum. Be careful. I will have to take components of dE. There are two components of dE. If you see, this is the x component. I'll call it dEx. And this is the y component. I'll call it dEy. I'm sure everybody out here knows, जिसके साथ theta, उसके साथ cos. So the values, we take components. So dEx can you see, this is dE cos phi, but since it is pointing in the negative direction, I'll take it minus. I'm going to put dE here, so minus k lambda by r cos phi, and dEy again minus dE sin phi, which is minus k lambda by r sin phi. Where is d phi, people? You have forgotten d phi. Playing bhul bhulaiya. Okay, so this is 4 and this is 5. Sir, what next? But nothing is left, only integration is left. If you know integration, that's good. If you don't know integration, it's better. I will teach you integration. Don't worry. But all the steps, please have a look. First we found dl, then we found dq, then we found dE, which was k dq by r square, and this dE had got two components, dEx and dEy, and we found the values of both dEx and dEy, and utilizing that, now I'm going to integrate I'm going to have to rub the board. You might as well have a look at it for 5 seconds. So I'm going to integrate, and before integrating, I need to tell you the integral formulae of these. So I'll put this down as a note. Integral sine theta d theta is minus cos theta, and integral cos theta d theta is only sine theta d theta. I'll put this here as a note which is to be used. And now the net electric field Ex is integral dEx, which will go from this point A to this point B. In short, it will go from 0 to theta. And now beautiful, we'll put dx here. I'll take k, lambda and r again outside. Integral cos phi d phi from 0 to theta. The formula upstairs tells us the entire story. This is minus integral cos theta is only sine theta from 0 to theta. पहले upper limit and minus करके lower limit. So sine theta minus sine 0. Sine 0 is 0. So Ex is simply minus k lambda by r sine theta. 5, this is 6. And what about Ey? No problemo. You want me to take down this? Ey, I'm going to integrate dEy. I'll put dEy out here to pasture. From 0 to theta again. So minus k lambda by r. How much is dEy? Sine phi. And the formula is integral sine phi is minus cos phi from 0 to theta. So let's hammer it out. Minus cos theta minus minus, that's plus cos 0. Cos 0 is 1. So you're left with Ey is minus k lambda by r 1 minus cos theta. Do not let your attention waver for even 1 second because it is not yet over. The net electric field has to be found out. And the net electric field, this is just Ex and Ey. So net electric field at O is, you agree we have found out both components. So E bar will be Ex I cap plus Ey j cap. Where is our Ex? This is our Ex minus k lambda by r sine theta. What is our Ey? Minus k lambda by r 1 minus cos theta. You agree? Minus k lambda by r can be taken common. In the bracket goes sine theta I cap plus 1 minus cos theta j cap. Your final equation is this. I'm sure many people will heave a sigh of relief. Thankfully, sir, खत्म हुआ. खत्म तो होना ही था. But ये खत्म होते होते एक ऐसी चीज दे गया. This has given us a very important formula. E bar, due to any arc, the electric field will be minus k lambda by r sine theta I cap plus 1 minus cos theta j cap. For example, if the arc, if theta was 60 degree, I had an arc from end to end, it was 60 degree. What would be the electric field? You don't need to do the whole thing again. So E bar is minus k lambda by r sine 60 I cap plus 1 minus cos 60 j cap. And it is as beautiful as it looks. Sine 60 root 3 by 2 I cap. Cos 60 half j cap. 1 minus half is half. So E bar is minus k lambda by r root 3 by 2 I cap plus 1 by 2 j cap. Wouldn't you invest some amount of time for achieving such a beautiful formula? which on application will give you the answer in a jiffy. So you can memorize this answer actually. And utilizing this idea, I'm going to give you a couple of numericals in the assignment, which you will do, and you will get a hang of this idea as to how you're going to do this and how not. So this was JEE NEET lecture number 2. In the next lecture, we are going to look at electric flux and we are going to look at Gauss's law. Thank you so much. Stay with me.